it comes back to a message, a quote, a mantra, if you will, that I would love to see every small business owner, founder, or CEO put in their office somewhere that's visible multiple times a day. And it's the reality that the more valuable the owner, founder, or CEO is to the day-to-day operations of the business, the less valuable that business will be.
Yes.
I think all of us in the small business world, it maybe not be a driving thought on a day in, day out basis, unless you're getting close to an exit, but we're all thinking about exits at some point. Or yeah, how do I grow enterprise value and extract the enterprise value, right? And I think that's the one message. That's the so what to this whole conversation. That is, if an owner or a founder can't get themselves out of the business, what greater motivating force do you need than the understanding that the longer that I stay in and the more that I'm involved in the critical element to the day-to-day operations, the less valuable this thing's going to be.
Yep.
Nobody wants to acquire a job. They want to acquire an operating entity that's able to generate profits and cash flow.
Welcome to Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help manufacturing executives command the front and win the floor. I'm Richard Walsh, creator of the Sharpened Impact methodology, and I've spent decades helping leaders transform frontline teams, unlock hidden profit, and capture capacity they didn't even know they had. If you want to see where your leadership gaps are costing you and how to fix them, head over to grittolead.com and run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator today. Let's sharpen your edge and get started. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. Aaron Trahan is with us today. And Aaron, no one knows Aaron better than Aaron. So, Aaron, I need the backstory. Bring us up to speed so we can get into a tremendous conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Richard. Looking forward to a fun conversation. So let me give you kind of I guess what I call the origin story, kind of the path that's led me to doing what I'm doing today. Um, Leadership in business happened for me at a very early age, 23, 24 years old. Kind of got thrown into a leadership role, kind of managing a business. And I'm quite confident the leadership team at the time thought nothing more than let's just throw the kid in there. He can figure this out until we find a more qualified, more permanent replacement. But I took advantage of the opportunity and used that as my springboard. So kind of rose up the ranks, managing small businesses within a business to eventually becoming a senior executive of the organization, now helping lead a $1 billion publicly traded company all by the age of 30. Now, what that really means is I think I've just made every possible business mistake during that period that you could ever imagine. And there was a lot of hard lessons, a lot of bruised ego moments along the way. And it was at about that time where just when I thought I had this business thing all figured out and everything I touched turned to gold, I was reminded that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And so that's what allowed me to go get the proper development, the proper education, the proper mentorship that helped me see blind spots that I otherwise couldn't. And then from there, made a couple of other pit stops along the way, really getting back to my small business roots, helping build, nurture, develop smaller early stage businesses and help them grow and scale. And that became a gravitational pull for me that ultimately took me to the opportunity to be able to do that on a more full-time basis now. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time is working with businesses, most especially kind of growth early stage businesses that are really looking to find that next level. Everybody thinks about growth and scaling a business, but those are things that are much more difficult to do than it is to say. So I'm able to help business owners and leaders of businesses be able to learn the lessons that I learned without having to acquire the same scars that I had to help them not only grow, but grow and scale the right way to where it's sustainable, where it's profitable, and they can continue to build upon that growth, not just get the growth in the form of a sugar high by going out and spending a bunch of money on advertising.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, that's much needed, right? I mean, most, there's the 90+% failure rate of new businesses, right? In that first 5 years, it's like 97. I think it's actually
Yeah,
97% that fail in that 5 years. So, and then we'll get into this too, because growth and scale, I want to talk about, they're two different things
sure.
that people
Sure.
don't understand,
That's
and
right.
so we'll get into that as well. But I love what you're saying about time compression because I'm a big fan of that. From mentorship to coaching, to learning from others, right? I've got a lot of
Hmm.
scars. I've been punched in the face a lot, literally and figuratively. So I mean, I'm very pretty because I had a great surgeon. Okay,
Yeah,
but but really understanding that and taking that and compressing 10 years into one for someone,
that's
it's
right.
invaluable. They don't get it, right? They don't get the and you're when you, let me ask you this real quick question here. When you're
Sure.
saying younger businesses, give me a little time window there. Is it post 1 2 year, or is it startup, or what do you mean? Because we all know in those first five, it's a little hairy, depending
It,
on where
it,
you're
it
at.
is, yeah. And so it's typically after the business has been established, there's sound product market fit. Now the business has reached the stage, and sometimes it could be years 2 or 3. This morning I was meeting with a business that's 10 years old,
Yep.
but still
Okay.
kind of in its early, still kind of figuring out how to grow up as a business, right? But it's really that point where the business grows to a certain point, and everything that they were once doing is no longer working. The
Right.
growth they've experienced is now creating more chaos for them than it is actually providing benefit. And the growing pains that have been kind of cracks in the foundation for a time period are now starting to show up, and the growing pains are starting to get pretty painful.
Excellent. This is that great definition. That's what I want to know because people, if they haven't done it, for one, they don't have a clue from year 1 to year 5 or 10 or whatever it is, or the way you described it. Everyone's at a different place in their business,
Hmm.
and I also say when people are looking for that help, someone like you, someone
Hmm.
like me, maybe, or whatever, it's they have to be able to value what you can bring. And if they
That's right.
haven't, that's why I always tell people I don't really work with startups.
Hmm.
That's because you don't have any scars.
Right.
You got to go make some bad decisions. You got to lose some money. I said, otherwise, you can't value what we bring.
Oh,
You just can't,
you're
So,
You know,
and it.
yeah, you're bringing me back to a conversation I had recently with a kind of a startup founder who was wanting to work with me, and there was some potential there, but they were still more in kind of the idea and experimentation phase, and they really haven't found that product market fit they were kind of looking for. Yet the world at large, the what you see on the internet, the magazines, the books talk so much about scale. Don't if it doesn't scale, kind of don't do it. And so it was kind of that reality where I was like, look, this may be counter to what you've heard, but until you find product market fit, don't worry about scaling because there's nothing to scale. Ultimately, what scales is the value that your organization delivers in the product or service to that target consumer, that target niche of the market that really values what you provide. Until you find that, do things that don't scale. Do whatever it is you have to do to find out how to acquire that product market fit, understand where your place is in the market, how you differentiate your value proposition, and what you can potentially do better than anybody else in the space. Until that's there, forget scaling. Don't worry about it.
Mm,
Find that first.
yeah, that's a huge takeaway here. So I want people to hear that,
Yeah,
okay? Because it's and scale is like I tell them, I go, you don't even think about the word. You haven't even grown. You don't scale before you grow.
right.
Okay. And like you said, then you're taking it back even you're more upstream.
Hmm.
What do you actually, I mean, you have an idea. And I always tell people every battle plan doesn't never survives the first shot.
That's right.
Okay. So like it all looks good on paper. Go out and start and see what happens. You could be 10 miles from here by the time you have something that's working, because you're in it, you'll iterate it. You got
That's
iterations, you're
right.
going to do that. You're going to get more and more market feedback, right? They can tell you what they really want. There's a whole another podcast on testing what you have and bringing it to the forefront, but that's the whole thing. And it's that ability to be agile and pivot and be not married to the original idea. Too many people
Yeah,
are like
it's
just, I mean, and married's even too light. I
right.
mean, they're like,
Yeah.
I'll die on this hill. I said, well, you're probably going to die. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's,
Yeah.
you know,
And
you,
and
go ahead.
that's exactly where I challenge them. I tell them, go out there and blow up your business plan, right? Because you can, you know, whether they're coming out of MBA programs or whatever, it's like you got to have a business plan. It's got to be lid tight. It's like that's what happens in a classroom. The real world is going to blow up your business plan. So the faster you find out and learn those hard lessons, get surprised, realize where you completely miscalculated, misjudged, what comes after that is really the potential to grow something and scale something. The one guarantee I have for you is that your business plan that you write before you actually step into the arena will get blown up.
Yeah.
So the faster you blow it up and learn from what blew it up, then you're ready to really start going and building something.
Yeah. So I always tell them you need one page. If
Hmm.
it's longer than one page, your business plan, you're wasting your time. Do the one
Yep,
page, hit the high point, and then go implement.
that's right.
Imperfect action will win the day every day. That's what you have to do. I build this whole diagnostic and all this cool stuff. Like I need some legit, and I'm doing dummy samples and I'm putting in all the information I can even think, just trying to break it, right? And this thing's amazing.
Yeah.
And I go out for the first live one, and I'm like, I come back, I'm like, I gotta change all of this. I cut everything and hammer it. And
Yeah.
now it's exceptional, right? It
Mm,
went from like, really, really good in my mind, like to like, oh, that sucks. Okay. And now it's like,
yeah.
okay, but every live one is feedback. Everything is feedback. Every
Everything.
problem's an opportunity. And like you find that now I have something that really crushes it in less time and
Right.
produces at a higher level. I'm like, this is why you have to go break things. And
That's right.
when you're getting advice, you better be giving them permission to poke holes in what you got. Give me the negatives. Just dump it on the table.
Yeah.
Okay, don't hold back. Give me all this stuff because I at the end I choose, right? But if I don't have the confidence to let someone else beat this up, I mean the public will do it. It does. It's going to happen one way or another.
And
I'd
that's
rather
way
be
more
in
painful.
control. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather have it with someone I maybe know than
Yeah,
some complete
I
stranger.
cannot tell you how many strategies I've seen from small businesses that look great, feel great, until you start asking the scenario at which these assumptions were built behind this strategy. If we look at it in terms of a worst case scenario to best case scenario, where are the assumptions falling on that spectrum? And far too many long-term strategies, business plans, whatever you want to, whatever label you put on it, always make the mistake of falling too close with what we expect to happen from a best case scenario.
Right.
Sometimes it's worth just like let's sit around and play with worst case scenario. How will
Yeah.
we fail? What will blow this thing up? Let's go out and experiment that. And the learnings that come from that
Yeah.
is so beneficial because if you're just planning for the best case scenario of anticipating everything to fall in place like you expect, the marketplace has a different reality that it's getting ready to
Well,
show you.
I always use that also the comparison. I go, well, like it's like your child. You have a baby, you're growing a kid's one, two, oh, he's the greatest or she's the greatest. And that opinion's always going to be biased. you know,
100%.
people, and not to, well, he's famous enough. Jeffrey Dahmer's mom said he was a good boy. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
She wasn't there for the real world application. Okay.
That's right.
So, but I'm just saying, it's like you got to understand, like you have these, like, and assumptions is a great place to start, but you have this emotional attachment to what you've created. You're always going to be biased. Like
Hmm.
you have to either need someone in your circle that tells you, dude, like you're not looking at this right.
Yep.
You need, I call them the outside eyes. You need
Yep.
outside eyes on this to go, because I walk into place and I go, oh, that's broken, that's broken, that's broken. They're going, what do you mean? Well, let me show you. Well,
Hmm.
I'm here every day. I go, yeah, that's the problem.
That's
You're
right.
here
Too
every
close
day.
to it.
Okay. We don't see it. I go, this is not you. It's not unique to you. This is
Hmm.
every business.
That's right.
They've got, that's why they have boards and things
Hmm.
like that, where you got these guys who sit on the board, probably never been in your plant.
Right.
Okay. But they're going to look at stuff and maybe it's just numbers or whatever. And they're not emotionally attached. Okay. And that's what you need sometimes is someone to give you that good slap in the face.
Well, and I think what the key point you're making there is, at least from my perch on the tree, it's exactly what I see as the differentiating factor between the business owners and the small businesses that kind of stay small and plateau out and get very comfortable versus the ones that are able to consistently find the next level and generate a compounding growth and scaling story. And it's all about what you're talking about. And it's, how are you as a business owner identifying your blind spots? And surprise, it can't happen just one time. It has to be an ongoing process where you're able to bring in a constructive view, feedback, those that are able to see things that you can't because of your perspective and position of being too close to it, being too in the business. You're going to have a completely different way of seeing the world when you're in the business, in the weeds, fighting fires day in and day out versus someone looking down on the machine from 30,000 feet up. So, what I see from a common thread attribute of the owners that are able to scale is they're constantly bringing in those feedback loops. They leave their ego to the side. They're always asking that question, how do we get better? How do we continue to optimize? What are the things that I can't see that someone else can, that I can incorporate in that's going to make us better? Because the funny thing about blind spots is, even though you can't see them, in a lot of other cases, everyone around you can. So if you're not bringing in that feedback, I don't know of a way, and I've never seen it, for a small business owner to continuously get better at optimizing and growing the business if you're not doing that. But as you know, back to the bias that we all have of thinking our baby's perfect, so many small business owners fall into the trap of thinking they know it all. It's their baby, it's their creation. They aren't courageous enough to take in the feedback that may hurt a little bit, that may gonna bruise the ego. And that's where it's the most counterintuitive point that I think I can make is, there is no better way for you to grow your business than taking in that feedback, both from not only customers, but also from external stakeholders.
Yeah, I think what's important for people to realize if they want to, I mean, I have no problem with someone saying, I'm doing, I just hit 1 million a year. This is where I want to be. They're content. I'm going to run my business. This is my good. Super happy for them. Thrilled, man, you made it. That's
Mhm.
because I'm not going to change that mindset.
Right.
Okay. But those who want to go further, again, it's just ideal clients, right? We're not going to work with someone who
Hmm.
doesn't want to grow. We can't really help them now, can we? But I
That's
think
right.
what's important is you have to have, and it's a bigger mindset. Like you need to understand you're not the expert in everything.
Right.
And it's weird because in the beginning you have to do everything. You wear 9 hats.
That's right.
That's how you build a launch pad, then get off it. But as soon as the boosters are gone, you're in trouble. Okay.
That's
Like
right.
you actually don't know how to fly the ship. Okay.
Yeah.
Once you put on it, going, oh, how do you drive this thing? Because there's so many things to it. But if you understand that there's a point, and I always tell people this, most businesses they do all the work, they wear the 9 hats. The first 2 years, they're doing everything, right? Making
Hmm.
traction. The problem is 10 years goes by, they've repeated the first 2 years 5 times.
That's right.
That's the hamster wheel they're on. So there's no growth, there's no anything. They can't figure it out. And they don't have time. They don't have freedom. They don't have any of that. But if you go and going, okay, I don't know everything. So if I didn't know everything, what would I have to do? I guess get someone who knows something
Hmm.
about something
Yeah.
and then bring them on in some capacity, even if it's a little bit in an advisory role or they're not going to be on the staff, but you bring them in, whether it's here's a 1 month, it's a 1 week, it's a 4 hour, it's whatever it is, take that in and begin that process. When you have that mindset, that's what enables you to get past the growth stage into a scaling stage,
Yeah.
because you're going to repeat those forever.
That's right.
That's I mean, it doesn't, it's not so you can get to this point and then everything like you're saying, right? You have to, that mindset is what gets you to $1 billion company or whatever, or I don't care what the number, pick the number, it doesn't matter, but a well run, well oiled machine that can
Yep,
function without you, because
that's
that's the
right.
ultimate goal.
It's the 30-day test, right? And that's what I love to ask
Yeah.
small business owners is like, yeah, I use it as the vacation test. It's like, tell me about your bucket list vacation. It's like, oh, it's I want to go on a one day I want to go on an African safari, spend 30 days out there, hunting lions or whatever they want to do. It's like, great. What if I was to pay for that trip for you next week and you were going to be out of the office for 30 days? What breaks first? Let's go through that list. What breaks without you being boots on the ground inside the business? And I know we don't like to think about that, but when you bring that up to the surface, those bottlenecks, those central points of failure are the exact things that's holding the business back because you can't let those things go.
Right.
And if you don't solve for those, it doesn't matter what growth you aspire to have or the freedom you aspire to have. If you don't just relentlessly attack those bottleneck and choke point areas, they we're all human. We adapt so quickly to things. And sometimes we are okay with the misery we know versus the misery we don't know. And even though it's you have to take off some of these hats, the longer and the more that you do it, the harder it is in the future to let it go. And so there's no better time to attack the things that's holding back the business from a choke point, central point of failure, or bottleneck standpoint, largely created by you, the owner or the top leader in the business. There's no better time to attack those than yesterday. The sooner you start, the sooner you rip off that band-aid, the more you delay, the harder it is to ever get out of that function.
So let me ask you a question then in this process, because I want to hear your view on this because I've got mine. But
Sure.
when you're seeing this, when they let go of the first little thing, okay, and then they get another thing, like what's the transformation like? What are you seeing out there with your clients? Because it only goes one of two ways. They're either clutching back because they let go, but that's only for a little bit. Like
Hmm.
letting your kids swim out a little bit in the pool, and you jump in to pull them back. Because you're afraid he's getting out.
That's
That kind
right.
of thing, or what are you seeing, and like where does that go, and is it more of a snowball effect where it just gets, it's perpetual, it gets going, it's awesome, or does it's still running into the hurdles?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think that there is an art to delegation, right? I think it's an art form for a business owner to get out of the tactical things. And the mistake that I see too many times is, I mean, we've all heard this. You and I have heard over and over again is, well, I can do it better. I can do it faster. It's just easier if I do it, right? Of course it is. But how are you delegating? Is that's the first thing that I look for. And what I like to help businesses do, and especially the owners of small businesses, is let's find some wins first. Let's not try to do 10 things.
Right.
Let's do one very well. So walk me through how you would delegate this. And typically there's so much missing context,
Yeah.
right? There's they give off this task and expect it to be done just like they would do it. And I have to remind them, you've been doing this. You're able to see the full movie. You're expecting someone to perform it the way that you're doing it. You're giving them a snippet of the movie trailer. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure the person that's now taking ownership of this task or function, they understand why this is important for the business. What does this particular function roll up to? What's dependent? How does this role, task, or function play within the larger framework of the organization? So let's make sure that they're clear on that. Let's now move to, do they understand what success looks like? So you know what it looks like. You know what gets done when you do it. Do they have that same clarity? Can they objectively look at the job they're doing on said task or function and say, I've achieved success or I've fallen short? And then even if you get those two things right, this third one's even bigger. Do they truly understand that they are now the owner of said task, function, or, you know, job, right? And so many times, this is where I see it fall through the cracks is, yeah, they kind of think that they're helping out. They think that they're doing this, but they still feel like real ownership lives with the owner. They still own it. I'm just kind of helping out. And so you need to drive the point home that this is now part of their job description. They own this. They have the autonomy or the autonomy to do it, but they're also accountable for the results, right? So has context been shared around why this is important? Do they have the clarity around what success looks like? What is the finished job of this task, function, role, whatever it may be? And do they truly grasp that this is now owned by them? They're they own it. They're responsible. They're accountable. This is now within their job scope. The owner is no longer the owner, right? And so those are the things that we really try to put focus on in the art of delegation. And we try to do that with one thing. We almost treat it as an experiment. We're going to take one thing and we're going to execute this delegation step at a world-class level. And then once they see that happen, once they understand, oh, there's levels to this delegation game. And once they start feeling comfortable and confident that they can delegate at this level, then we move to the second thing. And usually by the third thing we look to take off their plate, it turns into, "Oh, I could do this better, faster myself. I don't want to take this off." Usually by the third or fourth thing, we've got momentum and they want to,
Yeah.
they're into it now.
Yeah.
But you got to take your time and do it right, or else I call it boomeranging. It's just going to boomerang back to you if you skip those three steps.
Yeah. So good, Aaron. That's, and we're totally aligned on this. I do basically the same thing, right? And I tell them, it's well, they call it abdicating, right? You're just telling someone to do something and they got to figure it out. Well, no one is working for you for that.
Right.
No one came there to do that. They may be good at doing something, accounting, whatever it is, whatever, just pick your poison, but they didn't come there to figure it out so that you're happy.
Yep.
Like you have to have all that built. I call it just having the lane built. And I'm
Hmm.
with you on success. They have to know how to win on the day, the week, the month, the quarter, the year. Because if someone knows how to win every day, you know where they're going to come? To work
That's
because they
right.
get to be a winner. Okay. So I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of creating winners because winners stay.
That's
Okay.
right.
They don't want to leave a winning team. Okay. And when they're winning, and that's a good thing. But like you said, the one thing I'll kind of add that you probably know already, but consequences.
Hmm.
There has to be consequences. Like it's all sunshine and rainbows about winning every day and knowing this and doing this and being great. But also when you don't, okay, there's consequences. I don't care if you're 60 or 6. Okay,
Hmm.
consequences matter. They need to understand the repercussions of their actions, right?
Yeah.
It's important and it's at every level. I don't care from sweeping the floor to the CFO. Okay,
Yeah.
we gotta have that in place. And most people I work with, Aaron's like, they don't have that. I'm like,
Mm-mm.
well, they're professionals. I'm telling you, no, they're human beings. They must have consequences. I don't care
Yeah.
how
And,
good they are.
and and that's what I get is when I see an owner skip over those three steps, I'll come back and ask them, how in the hell do you expect to hold them accountable? Because what are you holding them accountable to? And I never get a clean response because guess what? The person they're delegating to they don't really understand the context of what other parts of the business are dependent on this task or function. They haven't really understood what success looks like, and they don't feel that they truly own it. And so I'll go back to the owner or the CEO and say, how are you expected for them to be accountable when you can't even hold them accountable because these are all vague conceptual things. And so the three steps going through that helps you keep them accountable and enforce consequences whenever, truly someone does come up short.
Well, their issue, Aaron, is how can you give them consequences of something that isn't defined?
Exactly.
There's no
Exactly.
rule. If a stop sign means if you feel like it, okay, it's like, you're never going to get a ticket as I blow through
Exactly.
it. Okay.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
live in the country and I like blowing through stop signs. So, okay. But I think it's really important for people to take this part of the concept and know that because you have to build it so that you can have consequences because that's the accountability aspect.
That's right.
right? Without that, there is no accountability, and you truly like you could like let's say you could take him to court and like, well, he never told me, he never did this. There was nothing ever defined. Well, from a legality standpoint, you'd be like, well, you kind of just put the guy there and told him you pay him.
Hmm.
You didn't what he can and can't do and what he's supposed to do. And like think of it that way.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna as the owner, you're gonna be held responsible for this, right? And you wonder why your people don't perform or don't stay because A players aren't staying at a hot mess.
No.
They want to come get dropped in their defined lane and run for the goalpost.
Hmm.
As long as they know where the goalpost is, they'll get there. That's so you got to think don't think you're just going to bring A players on and have them figure it out because they're not.
Yeah.
That's not what they want to do. They want to come and win.
That's right.
Okay. So when a great athlete is traded from one team to another, okay, he's coming at you to win in a
That's right.
system that's winning. Okay. Like their whole goal is to win. So,
Everybody wants to win, right? And so
right.
when everybody wants to be in a position to, it's you take Michael Jordan, for example, right? Before he met Phil Jackson and Phil Jackson came, yeah, he was averaging a gazillion points a game. He was dynamic, but they were losing.
Right.
And until someone brought a system to where he could play within that really made the team a championship team, everything changed. And it's no different for an owner. And if you go through those three steps and you ensure that the proper context is given, the proper clarity is in place, and the understanding that ownership has changed, now when you have to deliver consequences or accountability, it's really two questions. What did I not make clear enough about this? Or what were the drivers behind you falling short?
Right.
Whatever the answers are between either one of those questions, you can now optimize with precision. There's either a knowledge gap or an execution gap. We're going to figure that out right here, right now, and solve that to where this never happens again. So, by taking your time and executing it the right way, it's actually easier over the long run versus not delegating, not getting out of the weeds, thinking it's just going to be easier if you do it. It never is. Get it off your plate. If it doesn't meet the owner or the CEO's job description, get it into the right job description. Make sure the context is there, make sure they have clarity, and make sure they understand ownership has changed. And then you drive accountability.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have the 5% rule. So I say the owner, you should be working on only 5% of the business that only you can do.
Hmm.
That's all you're responsible for. Everything else is someone else's deal. And just like we talked about, so now your plan first to figure out your 5% and then begin the delegation process, building out the
Yep.
lanes, doing like you said, one at a time, start building it. And in a year and a half, 2 year process, you literally are spending just a few hours a week doing what you do best. And that could be vision, it could be growth, right? It can be
Yep.
market stuff like whatever that is, that's how you have to dial it down.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're always going to be doing things that there's always someone else better that can do it. And I want all the winners.
Yeah.
I want all the best working for me. Okay. I'm just going to steer the ship. Okay. You
Hmm.
guys are going to work the engine room. You're going to work all that. I'm going to be up here just, checking the weather, see what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, where are we actually going? Are we on course?
Yeah, Richard, it's funny you bring that up because one of the most impactful exercises I help owners and CEOs go through is basically a job description audit.
Nice.
Not of anybody else, but of themselves. I have them for a moment in time act like they are outside of the business. They don't have the historical context, they don't know who's in the role, but they are going to look at the job description of the owner of this business or the CEO of this business. What does the owner and CEO really need to be responsible for? Their job, the thing that they can do as owner or CEO that nobody else in the organization can do. So we'll spend amount of time, we'll create that. Here's what your owners of this organization, if you were an investor, here's what you would want to see from this owner or CEO's job description. Now we zoom back in. What are all the things that you're doing that have no business being in this job description? What are the things you're hanging on to? What are the hats you won't let go of? What are the things that you're spending time, energy, and bandwidth on that should never in this organization be on the owner or the CEO's job description? We have to get you out of those businesses or else nothing is going to change. You'll keep fighting these firefighting battles because you're in places where you're not supposed to be and not spending time on the things that only you can drive forward.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, and that's a realization. They start like, oh man,
Oh, when they see it
because
on paper,
oh,
you,
it's
you,
crazy,
you
right? Yeah.
it's almost like the words jump off the paper and punch them in the face.
Well, I do a similar thing. It's like, well, the goal is to replace you. So if you had to hire someone to do what you do, okay, and you're not your 5%, you're doing all this stuff. I go, the money you'd have to pay that person, you could never pay,
Hmm.
right? For what they'd want for doing all that. It's so really is kind of putting up a mirror
Yeah,
and going, that's what you're doing. So two things. It's too much. You don't pay yourself what you'd have to pay someone else.
that's right.
So you're not even getting paid for all this work you're doing, Mr. Business Owner.
That's right.
Okay. So like
Your
we need
margins
to,
aren't exactly what you think they are.
yeah, so I'm here. Just call me Captain Freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm here for. But like, we're going to nail that down, give it to others. Okay. For a fraction of the cost, would have your level doing it. And once you dial it down, that's when you begin to see how the business can run. It's kind of that little back of the head vision we all have about this
Yep.
amazing run business. I can go do my safari twice a
Yep.
year and never think about work. Okay, all that kind of stuff. But like until you really get a grasp on who you are as the CEO, as the owner, whatever position you want to be in, the founder, like I stopped calling myself a CEO. I just strictly like my new thing is founder because
Yep.
it
Same.
doesn't need me. This
Right.
is not built for me. Okay.
Yeah.
I've really had this kind of turn, Aaron, lately. I got a new book coming out. And you know what the smallest thing on the cover is?
Yeah.
My name.
I love it.
It's the smallest, tiniest. I go, this ain't about me anymore. This is about what we do, what we have is I'm building positions for everybody else. I'm happy to be out front. I can talk about it. I can drive excitement. I can do all that. That's like the fun stuff. Okay.
Hmm.
That's my 5% now.
Yep.
That's it. Everything else is done by pros. Okay.
Yeah.
Guys who are 10x anything I could ever do. And I'm like, and just fit the next role, build it out, fit the next person, bring it in. And there's so much freedom in that. And then you watch yourself grow and then get to the point of scale where you're like, this is really, I built something
Yeah.
that's beyond
Yeah.
me, right? That's more than me.
Yeah. And Richard, if I'm in the audience listening to this conversation right now, and I start thinking, yeah, well, so what? Right? What's the so what to all this? It comes back to a message, a quote, a mantra, if you will, that I would love to see every small business owner, founder, or CEO put in their office somewhere that's visible multiple times a day. And it's the reality that the more valuable the owner, founder, or CEO is to the day-to-day operations of the business, the less valuable that business will be.
Yes.
I think all of us in the small business world, it maybe not be a driving thought on a day in, day out basis, unless you're getting close to an exit, but we're all thinking about exits at some point. Or yeah, how do I grow enterprise value and extract the enterprise value, right? And I think that's the one message. That's the so what to this whole conversation. That is, if an owner or a founder can't get themselves out of the business, what greater motivating force do you need than the understanding that the longer that I stay in and the more that I'm involved in the critical element to the day-to-day operations, the less valuable this thing's going to be.
Yep.
Nobody wants to acquire a job. They want to acquire an operating entity that's able to generate profits and cash flow.
Yep.
So if you're having trouble, for those in the audience thinking about the art of delegation and getting out of some of the tasks and functions you're in or the some of the hats you're wearing, write yourself a note, put it on a post-it, stick it on your monitor. The more valuable you are to the day-to-day operations, the less valuable the enterprise will be.
Yeah, that's the big one. And I see it all the time. I always tell people, here's the exchange at the end. Someone offers you 10 million for the business, maybe you get 10.5, maybe you get 9.7, whatever it is. They give you a check, you shake their hand, they're in, you're out, no one knows the business sold. That's when you've done it.
That's right.
Okay, everything's still humming, no one leaves, right? Because you built the whole thing. And for someone looking to buy market share and what have you, that's the ideal purchase. Now
That's right.
there's a place for distressed businesses and all that great stuff. People who are struggling and all that, we do that. But to really understand, that's kind of your ultimate goal. And what does that
Hmm.
look like? Every year it's that you're trying to get some distance, trying to build it out so this thing can run. I think it's so important. And we could, talk about exit strategy all day, but it really just comes down to how long and how much.
That's right.
Like when you're starting with how long you want to do this and how much you want. Yes, when you get close, if you're having a really good time making a ton of money, you can move the goalpost. I'm just
Sure.
saying, if you don't have something you're working towards, it's going to be really hard to get it. You don't know when to hire, who to let go, where you're going. You don't have any of that. So that's a real guide. We don't have to dive into that too much, but I just think what you're saying, Aaron, here is for them to really get this understanding of like a real business. Okay. Because to me, it seems like, and I've been there, I did it for 20 some years, my first business, right? And you're there every day. You got to unlock the door or business doesn't
Hmm.
happen. I go, and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you still got a hobby.
That's right.
Okay. It's a hobby. The game only gets played when I, take the game out.
That's
Right.
right.
And that every day. And that is, there's so little fruit from that. You make a
Yeah.
little bit of money.
Hmm.
Okay. You'll have some vehicles, you have whatever you're doing, right? You'll have some real estate, but like there's no time with the family. There's no like enjoyment. There's no time away. There's just anxiety all the time.
Hmm.
And I said, and people, again, they're stuck on that hamster, that 2 year hamster wheel. Right. And that's what guys like you are getting these people off of, for one, but then
Hmm.
really building an enterprise that's scalable. And we're going to talk about that right now, the difference between growth and scale. That
Hmm.
you reach the point of scale. Most businesses never reach the point of scale.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to define that now because I want people to understand the difference of growth and scale. So the floor is yours, Aaron. Start with growth and then we'll move into scale.
Yeah, it's I think growth can mean a lot of different things, right? It's kind of doing more in the future than you were doing in the past, right? Now, all growth is not good. This is the big misconception that I see over and over and over again, is we think that if we just pray to the gods of growth and we grow the business or get to this revenue, then all of the all the problems go away. And in reality, it's rarely the case. And I think this is a good opportunity to share the Inc. 5000 experiment. And Richard, you probably heard about this, but for the audience, those that don't know, Inc. magazine publishes a list every single year called the Inc. 5000 list. And this is where they nominate the 5,000 fastest growing private businesses in America. Well, a few years ago, in partnership with the Kauffman Institute, they came and did kind of a where are they now? It's like it's great these high growth businesses make the list, but what happens to them? The results of this research project were jaw dropping because here's what they found: 68% of the companies that made this list, keep in mind, these were the fastest growing, most dynamic private businesses in America. 68% of them failed over the next 5 to 8 years. That can mean outright failure and went away, or significant downsize, or they're just no longer a growth company at all. But almost 70% out of them, 6.8 out of 10, were not even a growing business 5 to 8 years later. And so growth, just because you achieve it, doesn't mean it's able to continue to be achieved. And that's the difference that I kind of think about is growth. You can go get growth, but it may be the very thing that can actually kill your business. When we turn our sights to scale, just like the term that we've heard so many times, the economies of scale is, do the economics of the business start working better as you kind of scale the cost, the infrastructure of the business with the growth of the revenue of the business. And the way I like to think about this is if it cost you $1 in cost to grow an incremental $1 in revenue, you're not scaling the business. You're just treading water, right? And so when you think about the inputs and outputs relationship, is are you able to extract greater outputs of out of the business without changing the inputs? Are you getting economies of scale? Are you finding operating leverage? Because if not, if your cost and revenue are growing up at the equal amount, it's just a treading water scenario and probably putting more negative leverage on the business. You're not in a compounding growth and finding greater economies of scale scenario. So that's my soapbox there
I
on
love it.
on
No,
growth and scale. I'll
I
pause
love it.
now.
So that was total alignment. Okay. I want to
Yeah.
add, I want to, I do like super breakdown easy. Okay. Not that that was complicated. I'm like, I just say this: growth costs money, scale pretty much doesn't.
Right.
Like growing is expensive. And you
Hmm.
said it in a lot better way. Okay. Because there's all these elements to growth that cost money. And like you said, using the word leverage, you don't leverage. You just keep putting in, expecting this outcome that doesn't happen because, and you said it, you're not able to have the economy of scale. How are you compounding what you're doing now to do that going forward? So understand when you're in the growth phase, you're spending money
Yeah.
because you want to create that ability to compound, like you said. So, but that's the problem, right? They spend the money to grow, but they don't have the intention of creating the compounding effect, which is technically or literally scale,
Yeah.
right? Because you can't scale till then, right?
Right.
And that's so it's just I hear the confusion a lot. I think it helps give people clarity, and you really kind of broke it down really well so that they understand now why. It's one thing to know, well, I'm going to spend more to grow, and then I can
Yep.
scale. But what is that demarcation point when growth
Yeah.
turns into scale? And you defined it really well. Really getting the leverage and compounding the investment that
Yeah.
then can, it's almost like self-propelled, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of gives a almost kind of like what I like to refer to as escape velocity, right? It helps break through kind of, yeah, you may have to spend or invest, I would say, to really get kind of lift off, but then you don't have to keep spending at that level. Now, the growth that you experienced is able to help you more easily generate future growth. And you kind of think of it in terms of like a flywheel. Jim Collins is
Right.
famous for kind of creating the flywheel scenario that as you get the flywheel to spin faster, it costs less and less resources and less energy and effort to find that next phase of growth. And Richard, maybe if this is happy or easier, um, I can actually share a small business experience of one of my clients of over a 2-year period, how we went from a very challenging growth period to now in a scaling period. I'll make this super short, but
I love scenarios.
yeah, so I was working with someone in the healthcare space, really was a operator of different physical therapy and functional wellness operations. And when we first started working together, had experienced growth over the past 2 years, but it was not equating to scale. Here's what that meant. Revenue was growing at a faster pace than it ever has, but he was having to put more hours into the business than he had ever worked, going from basically 60 hours to almost 75, 80 hours a week, and profitability was flat. So yes, he could look at this top line growth, but he was spending more time inside the business and there wasn't a single cent change in the profitability of the business over the past 2 years. Growing, not scaling. Where we are today, he's now back to only having to put in 35 to 40 hours. We've optimized everything. He's much more system driven. We've hired the right people in the right place. Now he's experiencing double digit growth, a faster pace of profitability growth, and he's actually spending less in the business, both from a finance standpoint and a time standpoint. So now he's focused on the strategic things that unlock new levels of the business without having to change the inputs. He's able to do this now, working almost 25 fewer hours per week while being able to benefit from revenue and profitability growth. So, just a real example of how we went from inefficient growth that was killing him and kind of was making him question whether he wanted to continue doing this
Right.
to now actually having the freedom and flexibility of being strategic in the business, putting in far fewer hours and back to having fun.
Yeah, it's I love that. I love hearing that. And that's not an uncommon position for most business owners
Right.
to be in, but they don't always get the right person to help them. They don't really know the way out. So they'll just run till they burn. They'll
That's
crash and
right.
burn. They'll scale back because it was too much. And I get it, because we don't know, because no one really teaches you how to run a business,
Hmm.
MBA or not. It's if you haven't run a business, your MBA is only going to be helpful later.
Right.
It doesn't help you in the beginning. There's
No,
no,
it's
sorry, I don't want to bum anyone out. It'll help you
well,
later, but in the beginning, man, it's tough.
for sure. And Richard, to your point, the concept of scaling is even more counterintuitive.
Right.
How am I having to think as an owner or a founder, how do I grow revenue, grow profitability, and work less? How in the hell do I do that? Like that, it almost
Right.
doesn't, it almost sounds like magic. It doesn't even feel real.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's why so many people think to grow faster, I must be more involved to work harder in that growth. And there is no more depressing feeling for a small business owner than to work extra hard to reach that level of growth they were aspiring to, only to get there and be miserable and
Right.
almost wish that they didn't grow the business because they're far worse off at this size and not size and scale, but at this size of revenue. And their lives are miserable than they were, much more so than they were at a smaller revenue level.
Yeah, I've had mentors been through the same thing. They were making a lot of money, but every day they hated every day.
Yeah.
They hated the call with the partner. They hated and just like and until they let that go and then focused on doing it the way we're all talking about here. Now he's a 9+ figure business
Yeah.
owner. Like massive. And it's like and he just let that stuff that you it's making you money. That's the trap.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
And they're the lucky ones, Richard, because in a
Right.
lot of cases, growth doesn't always equate to
No.
profitability or cash flow growth. Like my
Yeah.
client, they grew top line, but the way that they were investing and spending to grow, they never found the economies of scale.
That's
And
it.
so cost went up at an equal or faster pace than the revenue growth. So you put in all this effort, you put in all this time, you make the investments, you grow the business, and you don't have anything to show for it. Money comes in, but money goes right back out.
Yeah. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
And here's the thing that bums me out the most, Aaron, is like no one's gonna work that hard. You're working so hard. You're
yeah,
putting in 80, you're putting in 90 hours a week, man. You're doing all the stuff. You understand, and then you can't benefit from it. That's what bums me out. It's not a
hmm.
work ethic issue. Like that's
No,
what they get a hold of
never
you.
is.
Can't, there's only so many hours in a day, and you can only work so much. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna outwork you're not gonna outwork the hours.
That's right.
Okay. So it's like until they get that realization, get that guidance. And really again, if they've got to that point and they're reaching that level, they need the help.
Yeah,
They if you were gonna do it, you would have done it. So just if anyone's out there doing that right now and they're in what we're talking about, like if you were gonna do it, it'd be done by now. So you
that's
got to
right.
bring in an expert. Bring someone in, man. Open up that checkbook, pay someone to get the work done, and watch everything change. In the span of a business time, it's like overnight.
Yeah.
1 to 2 years, 2.5 years. I've got clients I've had for 5 years. What they're doing now, I'm envious
Mm,
of what they've achieved by just doing what I've suggested. That's the
that's
other
right.
key. I just always like to leave with this note: like if you hire someone like Aaron, they come in, do what they tell you, which means actually do it. Don't nod
Yeah.
your head and say you're going to do it and not do it because you ain't going to go anywhere. It's always about taking the action. And this is my own little pet peeve. You're not hiring Aaron, me, or anyone else to do the work.
Right.
Okay. This We're giving you marching orders. You have tasks. Now you can delegate it if you understand delegation, right? We've already covered that. And then go do it. Like I have one client in particular who I just love the guy. We're tight, right? Been 5 years.
Hmm.
I'll give him something on Tuesday. By next Tuesday, it's done
Yep.
every week for 5 years. And that's why he's where he's at now. It's
Exactly.
incredible. It's like it just I know this sounds totally obvious, but if you've done it long enough, like you and I, we fired our share of clients
Oh yeah.
because they don't do the
It's
work. Okay. And all they're
they
gonna
gotta
do,
have that bias of action.
well, and I tell them, I go, you know what, you not doing the work tarnishes my reputation
Yeah.
because you're gonna say I didn't deliver value because you don't want to do the work. And I'm getting off my soapbox here, but I'm just saying, like, if you'll do
No.
it, I'm telling you. I mean, I get it. There's all different degrees of good, bad, ugly coaches, whatever. But I'm telling you, when you get quality guys like Aaron, so yeah, you go and just do it and watch it change. The faster you do it, the faster things change. It's not this 10-year program. You're
Yeah.
gonna see changes in months and stay on
Yeah.
that path. And you watch what happens. It's amazing. I love it.
It's a correlation, right? It's like you should never expect a change in results if you're not prepared to change the actions that deliver those results. You can't have it both ways. You can't stay comfortable doing what you're doing and then getting different results as a result of it. To change the results, you have to change behavior.
That's it.
There is no exception to that rule.
Right. Doesn't work. What do they say? The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. Okay. So you got to put in the work. So
That's right.
Aaron, this is awesome. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, two places I show up most. LinkedIn. I'm always trying to provide, value to, my LinkedIn community. It's where I get a lot of ideas, a lot of great discussion. Feel free. Let's connect there. Let's have a conversation. Hopefully you benefit from a lot of the things that I share just from real world experience on LinkedIn almost daily. So that would be the first place. And then second place, is my website. Just a lot more information around my approach to helping small businesses, and that's performancemindsetcoaching.co. Yeah, wealth of information there. And yeah, that's kind of what my job is to help businesses and those that lead those businesses continue to get better at getting better.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, as I knew it would. But we really I think we hit a number of really, really strong points. Um, Delegation, huge.
Yeah,
Growth to scale, huge, right? The 5%, kind of toss that in there. But this and all of this and really understanding, doing the work. Um, Overall, just awesome. I really appreciate what you brought today. Real tangible stuff
yeah,
people can take away, and I just loved it. So thank you for that, for your time investing in my listeners, which is just outstanding, and for everybody else. We'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. If you're a manufacturing executive and you're serious about unlocking hidden profit, improving frontline leadership, and taking control of your floor, go to grit2lead.com right now. Run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator and discover your biggest opportunities are hiding. Don't leave millions on the table. Sharpen your spear, lead from the front, and win the floor. Until next time, stay sharp.